dig a hole as a verb. This could be push the shovel into the dirt, lift the shovel, get the right angle, throw the dirt. So this would be different components of the verb. And then we could determine how could you succeed with it in it, and how could you fail in it? How could it be measured? Which interface element would be best for this? So this is the abstract. Anyhow, it's up to you. I can go into this theoretically, or we can do it hands-on with real paper and scissors, as I was.
Just one question. Koliko od vas ide na 3D kod njega? Jedno? Dvoje? Troje? Čas 5, da vam kažem da sačeka. Okay. They have the second part, the second day of education about 3D printers. So
I see. Okay.
He will wish I'm so tired. He will wait then. Okay.
Okay. I will. So I will have to make it short then.
He will wait. Okay.
Okay.
Just proceed.
So, what is the faster option here?
Okay. The fast option is me talking.
Okay.
So, okay.
So, are you gonna dig deep with you talking about that, or we're just gonna skip?
I'm going to dig a bit deeper. I think I will talk about like 10 more minutes.
I like that more.
So who's for me talking like 10 more minutes about this?
Sure, I know, sure.
Who? Please raise your hand so I can see you.
Yeah, sure.
So who's for the hands-on approach? Okay, so the majority is talking.
Yes. Because we don't have more time.
You don't have time, but we can do this afterwards if you're still.
Okay, yeah, sure, of course.
Yeah.
Afterwards, why not?
If you are still interested in this, we can try it. Okay. So I just need a second here. Where's my cursor? Okay. So we're skipping the thank you slide, and we continue here. I already started explaining this. So the verb would be, or the particle or component would be, so the verb would be dig a hole. Okay, thank you. First, shovel into dirt, loosen dirt, lift dirt, throw dirt. This could be components of this verb. This will be the first thing as a designer you would have to determine what does the verb consist of. The second step would be determine how to succeed or how to fail at it. Because I said before, there is succeeding and failing in most games. And you have to think about how you actually implement this. What is interesting about, what is critical first about thrusting a shovel into dirt. So a good angle or a bad angle, this would be important somehow for this part of the game or of the verb. There could be objects in the ground which could be a problem. Maybe this could be interesting. Loosening dirt, condition for success could be even repetitions to make it more evenly or less. The problem could be if you're losing too much dirt, or if you're losing not enough dirt. Again, as a designer, you would have to think about what part of this could be interesting. Because the next thing the game will do, it will measure if these conditions are met or if they are not. Lift dirt, do you have enough force? Are you strong enough for the amount of dirt? Can you balance the shovel right? Problem could be if the shovel tips over when you lift it and it somehow goes like this. So problem with the shovel itself. And then throw dirt again. Angles could be important here. This would be the next step. Still, remember what I said before about automation and simulation, right? Which parts do you want to simulate? Which parts do you want to automate? And we can go on and think about a toy. So one of the rules of thumb in game design is to create the toy first. And this is an example. So for example, GTA, the history of GTA, the first idea was, I want to have a city with a car in it and I want this as a toy. This was the first idea behind GTA, for example. So, here's the question. How could the game, it's a little bit different though, how could the game measure if you're successful or if you're not? These are ideas from students from another class. So, for example, loosening dirt, losing too much dirt, losing not enough dirt, could be expressed by a tower of Jenga. So, for example, you could call the whole thing dig a hole, and you could use as a toy a Jenga tower if you focus on this part.
For example, trusting shoveling dirt, we can also determine, like, is the shovel good or is the shovel bad? It's like the tip of the shovel is dull. It's
which would be a good monetization tool if you make people buy more and more shovels.
yes.
For example,
For example, yes, like shovels can have stats.
For example, this could make a difference. This is about game objects. And the task for the students was here to suggest non-digital means to measure this. So, Tower of Jenga is a non-digital mean. How to determine if something has a good angle could be made with a billiard cue or with a golf ball, and so on. These are all tools that measure if you hit the right angle. It's a bit tricky, but you can, I think you get the idea. How could you express balancing with which tools or with which toys? A skateboard, a high wire, for example. Again, then you would have to take a step back again and think, is that fun? Does it really show what I want to show? Does it really teach what I want to teach? Probably not, so you can just scratch it. But this is a way you could do this, and this is why I wanted you to learn this framework, because this framework will help you to ask questions this way and to come up with alternatives. And as I strongly believe that creative freedom is very much about having alternatives and knowing alternatives, and not so much about making everything possible, being allowed to do everything. Yeah, and then I made the students vote. And what they really liked was the Jenga tower, because they put so many dots on it. And they really liked the billiard cue and the high wire and the reflecting light to estimate the angle. So this is one variation. We made another variation, throw an X. Now I would like to make you suggestions on how to fail.
How miss. You miss.
Can't pick it up.
Yeah, you miss, but this isn't, one second please, but you can miss, but this is a result of one of the failure here.
Okay.
Yeah. You can't pick it up, it's too difficult to pick it up, or.
Take X, yes.
Or.
You could be too weak, just to lift the X. Or the X could be too deep in the wood, for example. You would have to really grab it.
You are too weak. So
Cool.
You are too weak to pick up an axe, basically.
Is it fun to put up an X? That would be the question.
Yeah.
Is it fun to have a simulation where you need to make a big effort to take an X? Probably not. To wind up the X, maybe this is fun. And now if you imagine something like a Wii controller.
So
Motion.
Yeah, to have motion tracking.
So basically like in those games we have the pointer and you need to point the perfect angle to have like the perfect throw. If you like, for example, put in a red zone, you miss.
Yeah.
If you put in the yellow, you're good. If you in the green, you hit a perfect score, for example.
And what you described here is an abstraction. What you described here is a representation, because winding up the x is being represented by the scale you just described. Yeah, and you can, but since we have motion controllers, we could, if we wanted to, we can do this, because this would be production-wise a very cheap way to implement this.
Like in the Wii game, like you need to like.
Yeah, this year in the Wii game or in the motion controller game, this would be a little bit more difficult to track and to determine. You could always ask, is it worth the effort or isn't it worth the effort, depending on your production situation. So.
We can also determine if they can act by a hilt or by a head, because if differently taking a head can occur differently release axes, so like style points, for example.
For example. So you see, there you have alternatives.
Yes.
You only have these alternatives because you ask this way. So this is what the other students came up with. So difficulty could the X handle slippery, or the player standing upside down, which is a funny idea. But you could imagine a game world, okay, where everything is upside down.
Wouldn't be X also upside down? So you...
Good question. I don't know, but you could get creative there.
Yeah.
This is and this could determine your level design, and suddenly you will have a game idea for a whole level for tool using, whatever. Yeah. So I have to move to speed this up a little. And here comes the last slide. Measure and digitalize. So, what a game will, I'm sorry, it's really hard to read. What a game will typically do is give you points for stuff. It will measure, are you successful, and it will tell you how successful you are. Many games don't tell you right, wrong, but you are like 5 points good, you are like 15 points good, you are like -8 points bad. So, this will do it by measuring. So, how you measure player action, how you measure a word, is an artistic decision. It's an artistic decision expressed in numbers, in math. So, here is a suggestion how to measure grab Vx with a grip sensor that measures strength, and to evaluate, the player grabs the X but it slips, 0 points. Player grabs the X, 1 point. If the player grabs nothing, 0 points. Simple example, but you can imagine how to scale this up. So, and this is the interesting thing about games. I said before, you should simulate the stuff that is fun and abstract the stuff that is not fun. But when it comes to feedback, sometimes it's the other way around.
For example, VR games. For example, VR games. It is VR games.
VR games, yeah.
With the headset, I think there is more important, like picking up. You are doing the emotion. The non-simulator part are fun.
True.
In those games.
That's one thing, and the other thing is when it comes to feedback, to output, what I called output before, then it's very much about abstraction. You actually, it's actually more helpful to have I'm wrapping up, I'll be done in 5 minutes. It's actually more, it's actually easier to grasp if you know my health is at 5 points, even though you realistically in the morning you don't get up from your bed and you say, well, today I'm at 5 of 10 points of health. Typically you will not measure this will be an intuition. But the intuition, for many games, intuition is being expressed in points. And therefore, this is what I meant with having it the other way around. When it comes to output, to feedback, to information, I would recommend to make it quick, to make it abstract, and therefore points are very useful artistic measure when creating games. So, this is my last slide. I'm running back to this one. Thank you very much for your attention, for staying with me so long. if you still have the time, if you're interested in this, we can go over there and try to abstract the components of the game by ourselves. Meanwhile, thank you very much. If you want to write me, here's my address. Have fun within the next days. Lots of success. Bye.